Shall we start? Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vilan, and I'm currently working as a lecturer attached to the Department of Business Economics in the University of Srilanka. And I have been assigned to conduct lectures for business economics class. And there will be around 10 lectures, since it is a 2 credit course. And I hope you have already accessed the LMS page for the subject. And I have uploaded the course outline and the slideshow for the first session. Course outline explains the learning outcomes that you should have achieved at the end of this course. And there will be 9 sessions. And the session plan is also there. And for this subject, we will have 2 assignments. One will be a group assignment. And as a group assignment, you have to submit a group report and you have to conduct a presentation. And the second assignment will be an individual assignment. There will be a midterm quiz as well. I'm hoping to conduct it online. And at the end, there will be the final examination. This is the mark allocation for each assignment and for the final examination. Final examination will carry 50 marks. First, group report will carry 10 marks. Group presentation 10 marks, and the individual report 10 marks. Online quiz 10 marks. This is how the total 100 marks will be allocated among the assignments and the final examination. Yes. For this course, we recommend 3 readings. Salvatore, Managerial Economics by Salvatore. This book is actually not online. This is not available online. So you have to purchase it if you want. I also have a copy. If you want, I can give it to you to take a photocopy of it. Salvatore. And Manque Macroeconomics. In this course, mostly the sessions will be on microeconomics, right? Yes. Up to 6 sessions, we will be doing microeconomics. From first session to the 6th session, our focus will be on microeconomics. And from 7th session to 9th session, we hope to cover some macroeconomic concepts. For microeconomics, you can refer to Salvatore. For microeconomics, you can refer to Salvatore. Or else, there is another good textbook which is Perloff. Perloff is also preferred. Perloff microeconomics. Yes, you can refer to this book. Either Salvato or Perloff is preferred, right? For microeconomics part, you can refer to Salvato or Perloff. Perloff is this. You can just enter keywords like Perloff, microeconomics and PDF, then a link will come. So this link has a PDF. You don't have to read the entire book, or you have to read only the relevant chapters. For example, today's session is on production. So it is enough if you read firms and production. That's enough. Firms and production. You don't want to read the first 5 chapters. You can start from the 6th chapter onwards. Right? And for macroeconomics part, you can refer to Mankiw and Apple. Mankiw's book is also available online. Mankiw Macro Economics. Yes. Again, here you don't want to read the entire book. Just refer to the relevant chapters. And the next is Apple. Apple is about international economics. So if you want to learn more about balance of payment and exchange rate, international trade, if you want to learn more about these 2 concepts, you can refer to Apple. Apple. I think Apple is also not available online. Yes, it says it's not available online. So if you want, I can find a copy for you. So just let me know if you want it. So these are for readings, reference books. If you want to expand your knowledge on the subject content of this subject, you can refer to the textbook. I know you have a busy schedule because you are working and studying, right? Everyone is working. You may not have enough time to read these textbooks, but if you want, you can refer to them. I don't make it compulsory, but I recommend you to read them. Actually, if you can learn everything from the slide, that is also part of this slide. And we will do some exercises as well, so that you can easily prepare for the final examination. Has anyone done economics in your A levels? So in any other course? Have you done in your A-levels? A-levels. No, A-levels you have done. Yes. A-levels. A-levels. You haven't done. Oh, then others can help you. I think there are two students joining online. Can they hear me? Can you hear me? Dilesh and Dilesh, Leonard Baduge, and who else?
Yes, I can hear you for now.
I'm sorry, sometimes your voice vibration to the classroom.
Just raise your hand.
Your voice vibration.
Raise hand option like this. If you can. I hope you can hear. So I will continue the session from this point onwards. If you have any technical difficulty, just inform the SAM administration, or you can just send a message to me through chat. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I box time to time. So if you have any issue, just let me know through the chat function. Right. So I hope you know the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics, because majority has done economics for your A levels. There is only one student who hasn't done economics before. So microeconomics is about the behavior of individual economic actors. It's about the behavior of, it analyzes the behavior of individual economic actors. Who are these economic actors? Any example? Yes. Individual economic actors. Who are they? Demand. Yes. Demand is one economic force or economic variable. Who creates demand? Individuals. Yes. Individual people. Individual people. So individual people is one category of economic actors. To fulfill demand, there should be some sort of supply. So who creates supply? Firms. Firms create supply. So firms are also economic actors. Then governments, and NGOs, they are individuals or households. Individuals or households. Household means family units. Family units. So these are the economic actors. In microeconomics, we individually pick up economic actors and analyze their behavior. For example, if you want to purchase a pizza, economists can visit you and ask questions from you about your pizza consumption. And after getting details or information from you, economists can analyze those information. So likewise, microeconomics is about analyzing behavior of individual economic actors. Individual economic actors. From individuals we talk about consumption. Because of consumption, individuals create demand for goods and services. Firms, they combine inputs. They combine factors of production. As a result of production, there will be a supply of goods and services. When it comes to governments, what are the roles of government? Governments collect taxes, and using taxes, they provide government services. So government has to incur government expenditure, government purchases. At the same time, government has to provide subsidies. For example, assessment. In these days, the government is providing assessment to poor people. So assessment means a subsidy. NGOs, they also have their own functions. They worry about welfare. So likewise, we analyze individuals' behavior in microeconomics. We can talk about individuals' consumption, individuals' demand, how individual firms combine factors of production. And we can talk about the supply of individual firms. We can talk about tax collection of a government. We can talk about government purchases of a particular government. We can talk about subsidies of a particular government. We can talk about welfare activities of NGOs. Likewise, we talk about activities or behavior of individual economic actors. We go to the individual level. We visit a firm, we visit an individual, we visit a household, we visit the government, we visit an NGO, and then we observe their behavior. Right? Got it? And that is about microeconomics. Macroeconomics is about analyzing the aggregate behavior of the economy. We look at the aggregate picture of an economy. For example, Sri Lanka, we can consider it as an economy. Sri Lanka is an economy. And in this economy, we have a large number of individuals. We have a large number of households. We have a large number of firms. We have a large number of government organizations. We have a large number of NGOs. And we talk about all individuals together. We talk about all households together. We talk about all firms together. We talk about all government organizations together. We talk about all NGOs together. So that is what we do in macroeconomics. We study the aggregate level. Behavior of aggregate level variables. So when we talk about all individuals or all households, we can talk about aggregate demand of all individuals, demand of all customers, or all households. So it's about aggregate demand. When it comes to firms, firms supply different goods and services. Ultimately, we can talk about aggregate demand from all firms. Aggregate supply of all firms. Then government organizations as well. In the case of government organizations as well, we can talk about total taxes. Total taxes. Total government purchases. We denote them as G. Total government purchases. And total subsidies. Likewise, we talk about the aggregate level in macroeconomics. We talk about the total. We talk about the total. We don't go to the individual level. Instead, we take data from all individuals, all households, all firms, all government organizations, all NGOs, and then we talk about their collective actions, their aggregate actions, aggregate behavior. So that is the main difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. And in today's session, we will talk about firms and their production decisions. Business firms and their production decisions. We will talk about specific firms. Our discussion will be limited to a particular firm. We will talk about single firms. Single firms, individual firms. Then obviously this session belongs to micro-macro. This session belongs to microeconomics because we talk about single firms, individual firms. We will be analyzing the behavior of individual firms in this session. So this will be the coverage of today's session. Short-run production with one variable input, optimal usage of one variable input in short run, long-run production with two variable inputs, long-run produce equilibrium for two inputs. So by looking at today's content, you can see two major concepts are there. The first two contents, the first two parts are about short run. The first two parts are about short run. And if you look at the third and fourth points, they are about the long run. The long run. Short run and long run. So what does it mean by short run and long run? You know the difference between short run and long run? You may not have learned it from in your A-levels. A-levels is short run and long run. I don't think so. Short run and long run are about inputs. They are about the nature of the production process. They talk about the nature of the production process. In the short run, a firm is combining two types of inputs. A firm is combining two types of inputs. The firm is combining both variable inputs and fixed inputs. You might have heard about variable inputs and fixed inputs before. Variable inputs are the inputs. They are the inputs that vary with the output level. That vary with the output level. Fixed inputs are the inputs that do not vary with the output level. Right? To produce something, firms need to combine inputs. To produce something, this is output. To produce something, firms need to combine some inputs. Right? If it is a garment factory, what they produce? They produce clothes. To produce clothes, a garment factory should combine inputs. So what are the inputs in a garment factory? Fabric. Also there should be workers, machine operators. There may be some supervisors and managers. Also, they have to combine some other materials like thread and buttons. They have to use packing materials. They should combine equipment like machines, irons, and so on. Equipment. What else? They combine electricity. They combine water. They combine food. They combine vehicles. They combine fuel. Maybe gas. Likewise, in a garment factory, to produce clothes, the factory has to combine a range of inputs. Right? So, output depends on inputs. In that case, output becomes the dependent variable. Inputs become independent variables. To produce output, we need inputs. So in that sense, output is the dependent variable, inputs are independent variables. Output level depends on input levels. Output level depends on input levels. So we can establish a production function with this logic, with this explanation. We can say that output is a function of inputs. You can write all these inputs within these brackets, factory, machine operators, and you can continue with, you can write everything within the brackets because output depends on all these inputs. All these inputs. So output is a function of, this notation says that output is a function of this list of inputs. Output is a function of the list of inputs you have mentioned here. In short run, some of the inputs, you have mentioned a long list of inputs here. Among them, some of them are variable inputs and some of them are fixed inputs. As I mentioned earlier, variable inputs are the inputs that vary with the output level. For example, to produce 100 units of a garment item, the garment factory may need 1 ton of fabric. To produce 1,000 units of a cloth, the firm may need 1 ton of fabric. To produce 2,000 units of cloths, the firm may need sometimes 2 tons of cloth, 2 tons of fabric. Likewise, in order to increase number of cloths, the firm has to increase its input, which is fabric. So in this case, fabric is a variable input. Because that input varies, that input changes when output changes. When output changes, fabric as an input changes. So it belongs to a variable input category. On the other hand, what about machines? To produce 1,000 units, the factory occupies 100 machines, 100 Juki machines. To produce 200 units, this machine will not be able to immediately purchase new machines. This garment factory will not be able to immediately purchase new machines. So they have to use the same 100 machines, to produce 1,000 units of garment initially. And even when the garment factory wants to produce 2,000 units of garment items, still they have to use the same 100 machines. They cannot change number of machines immediately. The garment factory cannot change number of machines immediately. The garment factory cannot change number of machines readily. Immediately or ready. Yes, of course, to purchase another few machines, they have to enter into contracts with machine sellers. They have to find money for that. They have to wait for some time until the machines are delivered to the factory. So they can't immediately change the number of machines they have. Isn't it practical? It's practical. In practical scenarios, Such items like machines, vehicles, and other equipment, they cannot change. And at the same time, buildings, specifically building also can be is an input. Buildings, such items cannot be changed readily, cannot be changed immediately. So whatever the number of units they produce, these inputs remain the same. These inputs remain the same because they cannot be changed immediately. They remain the same. And such items are called fixed inputs. Fixed inputs. Inputs that don't vary with the output level are called fixed inputs, and items like equipment, vehicles, buildings, machines, they are examples for fixed inputs because they cannot be changed readily. They cannot be changed readily. As a result, whatever the level of output, they remain the same. They remain constant. They remain unchanged. Clear? Questions you have? You have to clearly understand the difference between variable inputs and fixed inputs. So we talk about an example from a garment factory. Garment factory utilizes a range of inputs to produce clothes. And among those inputs, some of them are variable inputs. We can change such variable inputs immediately. But when it comes to fixed inputs, we can't change them immediately. So until some time, they will remain the same. So whatever the output level they produce, they will stay at the same level. This is the nature of short run. Short run, the firm utilizes both variable inputs and fixed inputs. So short run can be interpreted as the time period, time horizon over which at least one factor is fixed. We can define the short run as the time horizon over which at least one factor is fixed. At least one should be fixed. It can be many. It can be 2 fixed factors. It can be 3 fixed factors. It can be 4 fixed factors. But to decide to identify a time horizon as the short run, at least one input should be fixed. At least one factor should be fixed, or at least one input should be fixed. And the next time horizon we talk about is the long run. Over the long run, all factors are variable. So after some time, maybe after 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, this firm may be able to increase its number of machines to 100 to 150. Right? After 4 months, this garment factory may be able to increase its number of machines up to 150. And if in the short run the firm may be owning 10 vehicles, in the long run, after 5 months, they may be able to increase number of vehicles to 12. And currently, in the short run, they have only one building, and after 1.5 years, they may be able to build another building. So at the end, they will have two buildings after 1.5 years. After 1.5 years, they will have two buildings. So now they have entered to the long run. They have entered to the long run. So long run is the time horizon over which all factors are variable. All factors are variable. And there is no particular, there is no specific threshold level to identify that this is short run, this is long run. There is no such benchmark. We can't say after 1 year it is long run and before 1 year it is short run. There is no such definition. There is no such definition for long run and short run. Actually, the short run and long run depend on the industry. It depends on the industry. If we talk about a dry cleaning firm, what are the inputs they use? We talk about a dry cleaning business. They mainly use some sort of detergents, and they use unskilled workers, and they use simple equipment. Simple equipment. So, in the short run, these equipment may be fixed. In the short run, these equipment may be fixed. And these two inputs may be variable. Why they are variable? Because the firm may be able to change the amount of determinants they use and the number of unskilled workers they employ. They can readily change. They can immediately change. They can immediately buy amounts of detergents. They can immediately hire unskilled workers. So they are variable inputs in the short run. But when it comes to simple equipment, cleaning equipment, they are sort of fixed inputs because they cannot readily change. But the thing is, even though they are fixed inputs, they can be changed within a shorter period of time. So after a couple of days, let's say after 5 days, this firm can purchase a new set of equipment. They can double, they may be able to double the quantity of equipment they use. They can double. Let's say they are using currently 10 equipments. After 5 days, they may be able to double those equipment to 20 units, 20 equipment. So then they have entered into the long run. They have entered into the long run after 5 days. After 5 days, fixed inputs in the short run, which were simple equipments, they also now become, they also have now become variable. Now they have changed. They are variable now. So they have entered, this dry cleaning business has entered into the long run after 5 days. After 5 days. But when we were talking about the garment factory, it may took several months to enter into the long run, right? So the duration of the long run may be entirely depend on the industry, the nature of the business. If it is a small business like a dry cleaning business, the short run, from the short run to enter the long run, it will take a shorter period of time. To enter into the long run, from short run, it will take a shorter period of time. But if the industry is more capital intensive, like a garment factory, it will take more time to enter into the long run, right? So the definition or the length of the short run and length of the long run may entirely depend on the nature of the business and nature of the industry. Got it? Clear? So this is what we discussed. Output is a function of inputs. Output is a function of inputs. To produce output, it needs to combine inputs. For your firm where you are employed, you can think about what is your output and what are your inputs. So accordingly, you can think about what are the inputs variable, what are the inputs that are variable in the short run, and what are the inputs that are fixed in the short run, and approximately how long it will take to enter into the long run. So think about in relation to your own businesses. Yes, of course, output depends on a range of inputs. Output depends on a range of inputs. But for simplicity to analyze a behavior of a firm, we simplify our model. We simplify our model, including only two inputs. We simplify our model, including two inputs. We assume that output is a function of capital and labor only. In reality, in real world scenarios, in real world firms, output may depend on a number of factors. A number of factors. That is the reality. But in order to make our analysis simple as possible, we limit our discussion only to two inputs. We limit our discussion only to two inputs to make our model a simple one. To make our model simple, we limit our discussion to only two inputs, capital and labor. What is capital? What is capital? Capital is man-made items used in the production process like machines, plants, buildings, vehicles, equipment. They are man-made items, man-made physical items used in the production process. So that is called capital. Here it's not about monetary capital, right? It's not about money. It's about physical capital. Physical capital means man-made items, man-made physical items used in the production process. And what about capital? Sorry, labor. Labor is about mental or physical efforts of people. Mental or physical efforts of people. Capital is about man-made physical items used in the production process. Labor is about mental or physical efforts of people. And for simplicity, we assume that in the short run, capital is the input which is fixed, and labor is the input which is variable. We assume that capital is fixed. We can't change them readily, and whereas labor is variable, we can readily change the amount of labor. For short run, we assume that capital is fixed, labor is variable. And for long run, according to the definition of long run, all inputs become variable. So, in the long run, output is a function of capital and labor. Both are variable. So in relation to production, we talk about three main concepts: total product, marginal product, and average product. We specifically call them total product of labor, marginal product of labor, average product of labor. Why is that? These are short-run concepts. Marginal product of labor, average product of labor, total product of labor. So labor, L, is in the subscript. We have put L in the subscript because we call it total product of labor, marginal product of labor, average product of labor. So why do we always use of labor phrase everywhere? Because output changes when labor input changes. Output changes when labor input changes. For example, let's say to produce 0 units of output, capital input is in the long run is fixed. Capital input in the long run is fixed at, let's say, 100 units. So even produced or not, even when the firm is not producing, there is a fixed capital amount. And the variable input is labor. To produce 0 units of output, we don't need labor. So labor input is 0. We don't need labor to produce 0 units of output. Production is 0, so labor input is also 0. To produce 10 units of output, now the firm needs labor. Firm can hire one labor unit. This labor unit can be measured as number of workers or number of hours, number of working days, number of work weeks. You can measure the amount of labor in any unit, any measurement unit, any unit of measurement. You can measure labor in terms of number of workers. You can measure labor in terms of number of hours. You can measure labor in terms of number of work days. You can measure labor in terms of number of work weeks. That is up to you, right? You can choose any unit of measurement You can choose any unit of measurement to measure labor. That is up to you. So here let's say I have used number of workers. I have used number of workers. So to produce 10 units of output, the firm needs one worker. The firm needs one worker. Capital, what about capital? Capital is still fixed. It's still fixed. Capital doesn't change. Capital is fixed. To produce 25 units of output, now it needs two workers. Two workers. Still, capital is fixed. Capital is fixed. To produce 45 units, it needs three workers. Three workers. Still, capital is fixed. Capital is fixed. So output changes, output increases when labor input increases. So that is why we always say total product of labor, marginal product of labor, average product of labor, because these concepts, we will learn what do we mean by these concepts later. Anyway, these concepts vary with the level of labor. They vary with the level of labor. That's why we specifically call them total product of labor, marginal product of labor, average product of labor. We don't call them total product of capital, marginal product of capital, average product of capital, because capital is always fixed. Capital is always fixed. It doesn't change. That is the reason why we identify these concepts with regard to labor. So total product of labor is what? Total product of labor is this. It's nothing else. It's the output. This is the output. Total product of labor is the output. The total number of units produced. Total number of units produced. Then what about marginal product of labor? Marginal always defined as an additional of something. Something additional. When we employ one additional labor unit, how much the firm can produce additional? When the firm employs one additional labor unit, how much the firm can additionally produce? That is the meaning of marginal product. When the firm employs one additional labor unit, how much the firm can how much of additional output the firm can produce. When the firm employs one additional labor unit, how much of additional output that the firm can produce? That is the idea of marginal product of labor. We measure marginal product of labor using this formula: change in total product of labor divided by change in labor input. Change in total product of labor divided by change in labor. When labor input is changed by one unit, by how much total product or output will change. Here in this case, labor input increases from 0 to 1 by 1 unit. Labor input increases from 0 to 1 by 1 unit. Then what is the marginal product? What is the marginal product? That is the difference between this. 10. Marginal product is 10. So in this case, when labor input increases by 1 unit, what is marginal product of labor? Change in TPL divided by change in L. Here, TPL. Q is TPL. TPL changes from 0 to 10 by 10 units. Labor changes by 1 unit from 0 to 1. So 10 divided by 1, the answer is 10. That is marginal product of labor here. And again, labor input is increased by 1 unit from 1 to 2. What is marginal product of labor? Again, we use the same formula, change in TPL divided by change in L. TPL has changed by how much? 15. 15 divided by change in L is 1. 15 divided by 1, the answer is 15. So marginal product of labor is 15. And in this case, it is 20 divided by 1, 20. So that is the meaning of marginal product of labor. Marginal product of labor. The other concept is average product of labor. Average simply means the per unit. The per unit. Average always denotes the per unit number. Average product is the total product per unit of labor. Average product of labor is total product of labor per unit of labor. Per unit of labor. Ek labor input එකකින් කොච්චර the total product per unit. It's the average. It's simply the average. Average product of labor is total product per unit of labor. So to find average product of labor, we divide total product of labor by total labor input. We divide total product of labor by labor input to find the average product of labor. TPL and Q are equal. What is average product of labor at this level? Average product of labor at this level. It should be TPL divided by L. TPL is 0, L is 0, so it's not defined. It's not defined. So we can use a dash or you can write NA. NA. Not available. Not applicable. Because when both numbers are 0, we cannot define the number precisely. At the second level, what is average product of labor? Again, TPL divided by L. TPL is 10 and labor input is 1. So average product of labor is 10. Average product of labor is 10 in that case. And in the next case, TPL is 25 and labor input is 2. So average product of labor is 12.5. And in the last case, total product of labor is 45. Labor input is 3, and average product of labor is 15. So we can directly write average product of labor straight to each output level. We write average product values straight to each level of output or straight to each level of labor. But when we are writing marginal product of labor, we have to write them in between. That is our unknown. Got it? Because it's marginal product happens because it moves from one level of labor to another level. Marginal product of labor happens when labor input moves from one level to another level. So we have to write marginal product values in between two levels. That's the theoretically correct way. Theoretically correct way of writing marginal product values is to write them in between two levels, in the middle of two levels. But for calculation purpose, when you are doing exercises on your notes, on your lecture notes, you can write in front of the second level. In front of the second level. Right? Theoretically correct way of writing marginal product values is this. We have to write them in between. But for easiness, for convenience, we write them straight to the second level. Straight to the second level. So you are given that exercise. You can write average product and marginal product values. Yes, of course, theoretically correct way of writing marginal product values is to write them in between. You can write them in between. But for our convenience, we will write the marginal product values straight to the second level. You can write this. You can write them here. Right? Got it? Do it. We look at the numbers, we look at the answers in the next slide. You can check your answers. Finish? Do you understand what I am saying? There are looking speed very good. We can understand less speed. Textbook किलोमीटर ट्राई करा अदर प्रोफेसर की तरफ क्यों है फॉलो ऑनलाइन अवेलेबल है तो डाउनलोड करके ना प्रोडक्शन में फर्म्स एंड प्रोडक्शन चैप्टर की ट्राई करा Okay, let's take a break for 10 minutes. Let's meet at 4:40. 1998 or 1998. Anyway, Singapore, the foreign people, you can see that. That is good. Because the online people are complaining they can't see the board. It's convenient to have a smart board with us, and I can write everything on the smart board. Then they will see here what I am writing. This class time, I also don't like to write on the board because online people can't see me. Why they are learning online? Are they abroad these days? This is the typical behavior of total product of labor. Total product of labor typically behaves like this. We put labor on the horizontal axis. Total product of labor on the vertical axis. We start from 0. Here we continuously increases labor. We continuously increase labor. At initial stage, what happens is when labor input increases to some level, total product of labor increases at an increasing rate. Total product of labor increases at an increasing rate. So you can see the curve goes up at an increasing rate. Its slope is increasing. Or its slope is increasing. And after that, total product of labor increases at a decreasing rate. Still total product of labor increasing. Still total product of labor is increasing, but at a decreasing rate. So throughout this range, total product of labor is increasing, but over this range, total product of labor is increasing at an increasing rate. When total product of labor is increasing at an increasing rate, marginal product of labor is increasing. Marginal product of labor is increasing. And over this range, total product of labor is increasing at a decreasing rate. At a decreasing rate. So over this range, marginal product of labor is decreasing. Marginal product of labor is decreasing. We can label this as L1 and here it's L2. At L2 level of labor, you observe that total product of labor is at its maximum. TPLD, total product of labor is maximum. When total product of labor is maximum, marginal product of labor is 0. So at this level, when L2 level of labor is utilized, total product of labor is maximum, and at that level, marginal product of labor is 0. And over this range, total product of labor is increasing. So marginal product of labor is always positive. Always positive. Over this range, total product of labor is increasing at an increasing rate, so that marginal product of labor is positive and increasing. Marginal product of labor is positive and increasing. And over this range, total product of labor is increasing. Total product of labor is increasing at a decreasing rate. So marginal product of labor is decreasing but still positive. Marginal product of labor is decreasing but still positive. Here, when total product of labor is at its maximum, marginal product of labor is 0. And after reaching the maximum point, total product of labor tends to decline. Total product of labor tends to decline. When total product of labor is declining over this range, marginal product of labor is negative. Marginal product of labor is negative. So this is how total product of labor behaves. Initially it's increasing at an increasing rate, and afterwards it's still increasing at a decreasing rate, and it reaches its maximum, and after reaching the maximum, total product of labor starts to decline. When total product of labor is increasing at an increasing rate, marginal product of labor is positive and increasing. When total product of labor is increasing at a decreasing rate, marginal product of labor is positive and decreasing. When total product of labor is maximum, marginal product of labor is 0. When total product of labor is declining, marginal product of labor is negative. So likewise, we can show the marginal product of labor curve like this. So at this point, at this point, total product of labor is maximum. Total product of labor is maximum. That is why marginal product of labor has become 0. At this point, total product of labor is maximum. So marginal product of labor is 0. And at this point, marginal product of labor is maximum. Marginal product of labor is maximum because initially it increases at an increasing rate, and afterward it increases at a decreasing rate. So when total product of labor stops increasing at an increasing rate, in my figure it's L2. L2. This is where marginal product of labor is maximum. So that is how you should understand the behavior of total product of labor and marginal product of labor. Initially, total product of labor is increasing at an increasing rate, and when it stops at L2, marginal product of labor is maximum. And over this range, marginal product of labor is positive and increasing. And over this range between L2 and L1, between L1 and L2, TPL is increasing at a decreasing rate, so MPL is positive but declining. And afterward it reaches its maximum. Total product of labor is at its maximum. When total product of labor is at its maximum, MPL is 0. And then total product of labor decreases. When total product of labor is decreasing, marginal product of labor is negative. When total product of labor is decreasing, marginal product of labor is negative. with. Yeah. One. Average product of labor. Average product of labor is if we draw a straight line from the origin, we draw a straight line from the origin to total product of labor curve like this. We draw a straight line from the origin to the total product of labor curve, and when that straight line is tangent to the total product of labor curve like this, this is where average product of labor is maximal. Average product of labor is maximum. We draw a straight line from the origin to TPL curve, and when that straight line is tangent to the TPL curve, that point is where average product of labor is maximum. Before that point, that means over this, between 0 and L3, average product of labor is increasing. And after L3, average product of labor is decreasing. Before L3, APL is increasing, and at L3, APL is maximum, and after L3, APL is decreasing. So if we draw a straight line like this, the straight line is tangent to, it should be a straight line, right? the straight line is tangent to we have to draw it from the origin. The straight line is tangent to tangent is sparsha kya? The sparsha venot. The straight line is tangent to the TPL curve at this point. Therefore, at this point, we find the maximum APL. Before that, APL is increasing, and after that, APL is decreasing. After that, APL is decreasing. That is how APL behaves. And we see another important characteristic here. When APL is maximum, APL is equal to MPL. That's why the two curves are intersecting here. The marginal product of labor curve goes through the average product of labor curve. Therefore, APL is equal to marginal product MPL when APL is at its maximum. So we find such relationships among TPL, APL, and MPL. First, we find what? The maximum point of MPL. MPL is maximum. And then we find the maximum point of APL. When APL is maximum, APL and MPL are equal. Then we find what? The point where MPL is 0. And after that, MPL is negative. Before MPL is maximum, MPL is increasing. After MPL is maximum, MPL is declining. APL is always positive. Why is that? APL is always positive. APL is what? APL is TPL divided by L. TPL is always positive. TPL cannot take negative values. Output is always positive. Can we say that the garment factory produces negative 10 units of clothes? No. There is no negative values for production. There is no negative values for output. Therefore, TPL is always positive. Labor input is also always positive. It never takes negative values. A positive value divided by a positive value, so the result also should be positive. Therefore, APL is always positive. But it increases before reaching the maximum point, and after reaching the maximum point, it decreases. So these relationships you have to keep in mind. You have to draw these curves by yourself several times, then you can easily understand their behaviors. Clear? So draw these figures, draw these curves by yourself a couple of times. Then you will get used to these relationships. Also, we observe some other important behaviors. You can see over this range, MPL is higher than APL, right? MPL is higher than APL. When MPL is greater than APL, what's happening to APL? APL is increasing. When MPL is above APL or when MPL is greater than APL, APL is increasing. On the other hand, here over this range, MPL is lower than APL. Over this range, what happens? APL is declining. APL is declining. So that relationship is there between APL and MPL. When MPL is greater than APL, in other words, when MPL lies above APL, APL is rising. On the other hand, when MPL is below APL, in other words, when MPL is lower than APL, APL is declining. And also, when APL and MPL are equal, MPL is maximum. Sorry, APL is maximum. APL is maximum. That is about the relationship between MPL and APL. Now the next discussion point is about stages of production. Stages of production in the short run. We identified 3 stages of production in the short run. The first stage of production starts from the origin, and it ends where APL is maximum. It ends where APL is maximum. In other words, where APL is equal to MPL. So the first stage is over the range where the production is zero, and it ends where APL is maximum. Or in other words, it ends where APL is equal to MPL. That is about stage 1 of production in the short run. Stage 3 of production in the short run is where MPL is negative. Stage 3 of production in the short run is where MPL is negative. And in between we have stage 2. Stage 2 starts from the point where APL is maximum, or in other words, where APL and MPL are equal, and it ends where MPL is 0. So that is how we demarcate the 3 stages of production. Stage 1 occurs where output is 0. Stage 1 occurs between the points where output is 0 and the point where APL is maximum. Stage 2 occurs between the points where APL is maximum and MPL is 0. Stage 3 occurs where MPL is negative. MPL is negative. So you should be able to mark the 3 stages of production if you are asked to do so, right? You have to write TPL curve, and below it you have to draw APL and MPL curves like this. The point should be correctly identified, and this is the point where we can draw this straight line. And this is where the MPL is maximum, and that is where the increasing rate stops. Increasing rate stops at this point, and afterward it starts to increase at a decreasing rate and reaches the maximum point when TPL is maximum, MPL is 0, and TPL declines. When TPL is declining, MPL is 0. So you should correctly show the corresponding MPL curves and MPL curve and APL curve correctly correspond to the specific points on the TPL, right? And after drawing TPL, APL and MPL, you should be able to mark the 3 stages of production. You should identify where each stage starts at and where each stage stops at. You should be able to do this by your own. Individually, you have to draw these curves, and you should be able to mark the 3 stages of production by yourself. Right? So I'm repeating again. Stage 1 occurs over the range between where output level is 0 and where APL is maximum. Stage 2 occurs between the points where APL is maximum and MPL is 0. Stage 3 occurs over the range where MPL is negative. Okay. You can refer to your exercise we did previously on slide number 6. With the support of these numbers of APL and MPL, you should be able to mark the 3 stages of production. First stage starts from here, and first stage ends where APL is maximum. APL is maximum here. So over this range, it's stage 1. Stage 2 starts here. Ends where? Where MPL is 0. That means before negative. When MPL is before negative, it's stage 2. And stage 3 is where MPL is negative. This is stage 3. So with reference to APL and MPL, we can identify the 3 stages of production. Stage 1 occurs between the point where output is 0, and where APL is maximum. APL is maximum here. And stage 3 occurs where MPL is negative. And in between we have stage 2. Stage 2 is between stage 1 and stage 3. Right? The next important concept we learn is law of diminishing marginal returns. The behavior of total product of labor curve and the behavior of marginal product of labor and average product of labor entirely depend on this law. The behavior of TPL, NPL and APL, their behaviors depend on this law. The law is the law of diminishing marginal returns. The law of marginal returns. Don't say it's law of diminishing returns. That's completely wrong. It should be law of diminishing marginal returns, not the law of diminishing returns. If you say law of diminishing returns, that's completely wrong. It's about law of diminishing marginal returns. Diminishing means decline. Diminishing means decline. Marginal return means marginal product. Marginal product of labor. So this law is about declining marginal product of labor. Simply this law is about declining marginal product of labor. So this law is operating. This law is operating over the range where MPL is declining. Where MPL is declining. The law operates over the range where NPL is declining. The law operates over the range where NPL is declining. Clear? Over this range, what we observe? NPL is declining. So when NPL is declining, that is where this law is operating. The law says when a firm when a firm uses more and more units of the variable input. What is the variable input in our case? It's labor. When a firm uses more and more units of a variable input, in our case it's labor, with a given amount of the fixed input. What is the fixed input in our case? It's capital. After a point, the marginal product of the variable input, declines. That is the explanation for this law. When a firm uses more and more of a variable input with a given amount means fixed amount, with a given or fixed amount, with a given amount of the fixed input, there is a point after which marginal product of the variable input declines. Yes. In this case, let's say we use capital constant at 10 units. So whatever the output level, it remains the same. Just assume the firm utilizes 10 units of capital, so whatever the output level, it doesn't change. When the firm continuously increases labor input while holding capital input constant, there is a particular point after which marginal product of labor declines. Marginal product of labor declines after which point? After this point. Up to this point, what happens? Marginal product of labor is increasing. Over this rate, marginal product of labor is increasing. So after this point, marginal product of labor declines. So this is where the law of diminishing marginal returns is operating, is in effect. The law of diminishing marginal returns is in effect over this range where marginal product of labor is declining. Clear? The law of diminishing marginal return says what? When a firm uses more and more of a unit of the variable input, yes, when the firm continuously increasing its variable input with a fixed amount of the fixed input, with a given amount of the fixed input, there is a particular point after which marginal product of labor is declining. That is about the why it happens. Think about a garment factory, and this is the space available for that garment factory. In this space, we can set up, let's say, 10 duty machines at maximum. The maximum number of duty machines we can establish in this space is, let's say, 10. So we need 2 workers to work with 1 machine. We can establish only 10 machines. We can fix only 10 machines in this space. For one machine, it needs only two workers. To one machine, it needs only 2 workers. So at maximum, how many workers we should use? Only 20 workers. What happens if we hire 50 workers? What happens? workers, sorry, let's say 25 workers, what happens if we hire 25 workers? So there will be some disturbances. There may be some disturbances. So marginal product will decline. There may be some disturbances when the number of workers are higher than needed. We need only 25, we have hired 25. So there may be some disturbances among workers. So maximum possible output level won't be able to reach. So marginal product of labor will decline. It will continue. The marginal product of labor will continuously decline. It will continuously decline if we hire 30 workers, if we hire 35 workers, if we hire 40 workers, then continuously marginal product of labor will decline. So that is how marginal product of labor declines in a practical scenario, in a real world scenario. Because of the disturbances it creates because of additional workers. Additional workers than needed will create disturbances in the production process. As a result, marginal product of labor will tend to decline. Marginal product of labor will tend to decline as additional workers than needed create disturbances in the production process. So the behavior of TPL, NPL and APL all because of the law of diminishing marginal returns. Now we try to understand where a rational producer will operate. Where a rational producer operates. In stage 1 or stage 2 or stage 3. What do you think? Where, in which stage a rational producer means a producer who wants to maximize their their profit. A rational producer is a producer who wants to maximize his profits. A rational producer may operate in stage 1, in stage 2 or in stage 3. What do you think? In stage? Yes? Any guesses? 2. Yes, correct. In stage 2, a rational producer will choose to operate in stage 2. What is the reason? Yes? In this stage, without any doubt, marginal product of labor is negative or positive? Positive. Marginal product of labor is positive. At the same time, marginal product of capital is also positive. We cannot show this in the graph, but implicitly you have to think that marginal product of capital is also positive over this range. The graph even though we cannot show that marginal product of capital is positive over this range, we have to implicitly think that marginal product of capital is also positive over this range. Because we have some kind of a balance between labor and capital. We have a kind of a balance between the amount of labor and the amount of capital. That's why both MPL and NPK are positive. When it comes to stage 3, obviously a rational producer will not operate because MPL is negative. Because MPL is negative. MPL is negative. Or stage 2, because output is declining. Will a rational producer increase its labor input? Will a rational producer increase its labor input when output declines? Then he should be mad. He should be suffering from some mental illness, mental disorder. If this firm still increases its labor input in order to produce, because the total product of labor or output is declining over this range. So no rational producer will operate over this range. That's obvious. Why NPL is negative over this? Here, labor is, sorry, yes, here capital labor is underutilized. We have more capital, sorry, we have more labor compared to the available capital, available stock of capital. So compared to the availability of labor, we have a limited quantity of capital. We have a limited quantity of capital. So capital is not enough to fully utilize labor. Capital is not enough to fully utilize labor. Therefore, marginal product of labor is negative. Here labor is underutilized. Underutilized. And in stage 1, capital is the same amount of capital like here. But comparatively, we have smaller amount of labor. Because it's the initial stage. At initial stage, the firm is using limited amount of labor, small number of labor. So compared to the availability of capital, less number of labor is employed, labor is employed. So here, capital is underutilized. We don't have enough labor to fully utilize capital. Because of that, over stage 1, marginal product of capital is negative. Marginal product of capital is negative because capital is underutilized. And over stage 3, labor is underutilized. So marginal product of labor is negative. And in stage 2, both marginal product of labor and capital are positive because we have kind of a balance between the labor and capital amount. We have a balance between labor amount and capital amount over stage 1. Therefore, a rational producer will operate in stage 2, not in stage 1 or 2, not in stage 1 or 3. We identified that a rational producer will operate in stage 2, but exactly where? The next question is exactly where a rational producer will operate. It can be here, it can be here. A rational producer may operate here, 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 or here, anywhere. But only at one exact level of labor. It can be here, So the next question is to decide at which specific level of labor a rational producer will operate. At which specific level of labor a rational producer will operate. That is our next question. Only through this picture we understood that a rational producer will operate in stage 2, but still it is questionable exactly at which level of labor. A rational producer will operate. That is the next question we try to address. For that, we use a simple formula. That formula is marginal revenue product of labor should be equal to marginal resource cost of labor. When these two values are equal, that is where a rational producer exactly will operate. That is where a rational producer will exactly operate. So that we call it the optimum level of labor. Variable input means labor input. The optimum use of labor input in short run is where a rational producer will exactly operate, and that optimum level of labor is found when marginal revenue product of labor is equal to marginal resource cost of labor. When this equality is established, we can determine the optimum use of the variable input. In our case, it's the optimum use of labor input. What is this marginal revenue product of labor and marginal resource cost of labor? In any economic activity, it can be production, it can be consumption, it can be investment, it can be anything. In any economic activity, economic actors always look at two things in order to make decisions. When making economic decisions, economic actors always look at two factors or two concepts. What are they? Marginal benefit and marginal cost. Economic actors always make economic decisions by comparing marginal benefit of an economic activity against the marginal cost of that economic activity. For example, let's talk about an investor. How much the investor should invest? How much the investor should invest? To decide the amount of investment to be made by this investor should be decided by comparing marginal benefit and marginal cost. Marginal benefit and marginal cost. If marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, what this investor will do? This investor will increase the amount of investment. Right? Because it generates additional benefits more than the additional cost. Marginal means additional. This is about additional cost, benefit. This is about additional costs. When additional benefits of investment is greater than an additional cost of investment will be increased by this investor. On the other hand, when additional benefits are lower than the additional costs, what the investor will tend to do? The investor will cut down his investment because it creates lower additional benefits than additional costs. The investor will come to an equilibrium when marginal benefits are equal to marginal costs. That is where the equilibrium stops. The investment amount stops. After reaching a point, after reaching an investment level where marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost, the investment amount is finalized. The amount of investment is finalized. After reaching this point, there won't be any increases or decreases in investment. Investment has reached its equilibrium level. So, investor always look at marginal benefit and marginal cost of investment in order to determine the investment level. If marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, investor tends to increase the investment amount. If marginal benefit is less than marginal cost, investor tends to cut down its investment. If marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost, then the optimum input, the optimum level of investment has been reached. So the investor stops at that level. The similar principle is applied here as well. This is about production. This is about investment. Both are economic activities. Investment. In investment, the investor looks at marginal benefit and marginal cost. Here also, the producer looks at marginal benefit and marginal cost. This is marginal benefit. This is marginal cost. MRPL, which is marginal revenue product of labor, is the marginal benefit. That is the marginal benefit. Marginal benefit is marginal revenue product of labor. Marginal cost is marginal resource cost of labor. When marginal benefit of when marginal resource cost, when marginal revenue product of labor is greater than marginal resource cost of labor, marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost. Then what should they do? They should hire more labor. They should increase labor. They should keep hiring new labor. Keep hiring new labor. Because benefit, marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost. So when labor input is increasing, total product of labor also will increase. On the other hand, when marginal revenue product of labor is less than marginal resource cost of labor, marginal benefit is lower than marginal cost. So existing labor should be fired. They should cut down labor. So when labor is cut down, total product of labor will go down. On the other hand, when marginal revenue product of labor is equal to marginal resource cost of labor, the optimum level of labor is reached. The optimum level of labor is reached. When optimum level of labor is reached, total product of labor is also optimal. Total product of labor is also optimal. Optimum total product and maximum total product are two different concepts, right? Maximum total product is where total product of labor is maximum. This is the maximum level of total product. Maximum level of total product and optimum level of total product are two different concepts. Optimum level of total product is where the profit is maximized. It's not about the point where total product is maximized. Here, profit is maximized. Optimum level of labor, profit is maximized. At optimum level of labor, profit is maximized. So this total product of labor is where profit is maximum, not where TPL is maximum. Understood? Okay. Any doubts on that? Marginal revenue product of labor. Now let's look at the meaning of marginal revenue product of labor. That's the marginal benefit. Marginal benefit of extra labor unit. When a firm employs one extra unit of labor, one additional unit of labor, they can produce something extra. They can produce something extra. Total product of labor will increase by this much. By selling this extra amount, by selling this extra amount of output, additional output, what the firm can do, what the firm can gain. By selling this extra output, the firm will be able to gain an extra total revenue. Extra total revenue. They employ one additional unit of labor. With that, they will be able to produce something extra. By selling this extra amount, the firm will be able to generate an extra total revenue. So, marginal revenue product is this extra revenue that the firm can obtain by increasing this one unit of labor. So, marginal revenue product of labor is the extra revenue the firm earns by hiring one extra unit of labor. We calculate it delta T, the change in total revenue divided by change in labor. When hiring one extra unit of labor, how much of additional total revenue the firm can obtain? That is the idea of marginal revenue product of labor. Marginal revenue product of labor we multiply marginal product of labor by unit price of output to obtain marginal revenue product of labor. It is the extra revenue that the firm can earn by hiring one extra unit of labor. This price is constant. Unit price of output is constant. It's constant, it's given. It doesn't change in the market. Because we assume that this firm is operating in a perfectly competitive market. We assume that this particular firm is operating in a perfectly competitive market. So this is only a small firm in the entire market. The market is big. There are a large number of firms, and this firm is only one. So this particular firm does not have any power to control the market price. This particular firm has to pay the price determined in the market. So this is a perfectly competitive firm. Therefore, this perfectly competitive firm acts as a price taker. This firm acts as a price taker. This is only a small firm among many other firms in the perfectly competitive market. So this particular firm has no power to influence the market price. This is the market. This is the market. This is demand, this is supply. When the demand and supply forces are intersecting, the equilibrium price in the market is determined. And this is about the firm. This is about the firm. The firm has to follow the price determined in the market, and the firm can supply any amount. The firm can supply any amount at this particular price, which is determined in the market. So this firm can supply any amount at this market price. So therefore, this price is constant. This price is constant for this particular firm because it's a price taker in a perfectly competitive market. In a perfectly competitive market. That is about marginal revenue product of labor. Marginal revenue product of labor. How do we calculate it? We multiply MPL by the price. Price is always the same. Price is always the same. And the meaning of marginal revenue product of labor is it's about the extra revenue that the firm can earn by hiring one extra unit of labor. When hiring one unit of labor, they can produce extra output. By selling this extra output, they can obtain an extra revenue, and this extra revenue is because of extra 1 unit of labor. Then what about marginal resource cost of labor? Marginal resource cost of labor, that is again, this is about revenue, that is about cost. So marginal resource cost of labor is extra cost the firm has to bear. Extra cost the firm has to bear when hiring one extra unit of labor. Marginal resource cost of labor is extra cost the firm has to bear when hiring one extra unit of labor. Right? And it is equal to the wage rate. It is equal to the wage rate determined in the market. Wage rate is also constant. Wage rate is also constant. Here instead of marginal, we can write the price. Okay. Price is constant. Wage rate is the marginal resource cost of labor, how it becomes. This is a perfectly competitive firm in both output and input markets. In input market also, this firm is only a very small firm among many other firms. This firm is a small firm among many other firms. Therefore, this particular firm does not have any power to influence the wage rate determined in the market. This particular firm does not have any power to determine, to influence the wage rate determined in the market. So, this is about the wage, the labor market, labor, wage rate. This is demand for labor. This is supply of labor. When the demand for labor and supply of labor are intersecting, equilibrium wage rate is determined. Equilibrium wage rate is determined, and the firm will hire any amount of labor at this wage rate. Let's assume this wage rate is 20. Let's assume this wage rate is 20. So if the firm hires 0 labor, 1 unit of labor, 2 units of labor, 3 units of labor, 4 units of labor, the wage rate doesn't change. It remains at the same level eventually. Because this particular firm does not have any power to influence the equilibrium wage rate determined in the labor market. So what is the labor cost? What is the labor cost here? Here it's 0. Here it's 20, 40, 60, 40. And what is the marginal cost? Marginal resource cost. Marginal resource cost of labor. Marginal resource cost of labor. That is change in total labor cost divided by change in labor. Delta labor cost divided by delta labor. Change in labor cost divided by change in labor input. What is it? Here it's not available. It's here. Change in labor cost is 20. Change in labor is 1. 20 divided by 1. It's 20. Again, when labor input increases from 1 to 2, labor cost changes by 20. Labor input increases by 1. 12 divided by 1, 20. Again, labor cost increases by 20. Labor input increases by 1. And MRCL is 20. Here also the same. So what do you observe? Marginal resource cost of labor, and wage rate are equal. Marginal resource cost of labor and wage rate are equal. This is the wage rate. This is marginal resource cost of labor. They are equal. Therefore, we can directly take the wage rate as the marginal resource cost of labor. That is the marginal cost side. What is marginal benefit side? Marginal benefit side is marginal revenue product of labor. How do we calculate it? Marginal product of labor multiplied by price. Here wage rate is constant, here the price is constant because we assume that the firm is operating both in a perfectly competitive output market and in a perfectly competitive labor market. Okay, let's stop here because it's 6 o'clock now. Your statistics course, statistics class is the previous class, before my class, right? So it ends at 3 o'clock. So then you need a break at least 10 or 15 minutes, right? So is it okay if I suggest to the administration to start this class at 3:15 and end at 6:50? Is that fine for you? Because the content is outlined from Galle. I mean, what do you prefer? 3 to 5, 3 to 6, but before my class, I have to give a 10 minutes break.